Well, in the famous allegory, Pilgrim's Progress, John Bunyan pictures the Christian on his journey towards the kingdom of life, and that Christian must be outfitted for that journey by three sisters, charity, piety, and prudence. And he was giving us that image and that allegory because he was showing us this is what the Christian needs to be successful in life. That all of us, if we're gonna journey through life successfully, need to sit at the feet of charity, piety, and prudence, which are old school words for piety, righteousness. We need to know what's right and do what's right. Charity is love. We need to know what it is to be loved by God and to love him and to love others. And prudence is wisdom. That to be successful in life, we need righteousness, we need love, and we need wisdom. And the book we're in, Ecclesiastes, is a wisdom book. Now, wisdom is defined in the book of Proverbs, that other wisdom book, with kind of a pileup of words. Wisdom is said to possess knowledge and insight. And so to be wise is to have information, to have knowledge, and also have the insight. That means to understand the particularities of how something works. But wisdom goes further than that. In the book of Proverbs, it says that wisdom has with it prudence and discretion. That's not just knowledge of something or insight into how it works. That's understanding when and how to make precise decisions. And so wisdom, if you pull those things together, wisdom is the understanding of how the world works and an understanding of how to work within the world. It can be translated skill, competency in the complexities of life. A skillful quarterback doesn't just know how to throw a football. He knows how to read the defense, and he knows exactly when and where to throw it. A skilled counselor knows not only what to say, but when and how and in what tone. That's wisdom, that I understand how the world works and that I understand how to work within it. And Ecclesiastes, the book we've been in, is a wisdom book, and it addresses those two aspects. Here's how the world works, here's how you work within it. And here's where we are in the book. In the first half of the book, he really emphasized more that knowledge part. Let me tell you how the world is. And a theme over and over again in Ecclesiastes is, after the fall, after humanity broke faith with God, though there is still some sort of rhythm to the flow of life, there is still also deep brokenness, and the world is a frustrating place. And that shows up all through Ecclesiastes. This is a broken, frustrating world, and you can't call time out and you can't change the rules. Life happens to you, and it's not always fair. People are out here throwing elbows, and the refs aren't calling fouls, right? But then he also sprinkled in some advice. But there's some good days too, so try to enjoy them, right? Now, as we crossed over the midway point and are now kind of wrapping up the book on the back end, the weight's gonna shift a little. He's still gonna give us some perspective about a broken, messy world, but we're gonna focus more on practice. Now that we know this is how the world works, let me give you some advice on how to work well within it. And then the section we just read, as disjointed as it feels in some ways, it really is a chapter that focuses on wisdom at work. It's interesting, many commentators believe that the wisdom literature in your Bible was written primarily to young people about to enter government service. So this was literally written for you, right? And I'm gonna try to distill it down into a couple just pieces of solid advice, wisdom for you to navigate work in a broken world, all right? And so we won't re-preach chapter 9. Landon did a phenomenal job of that last week, but I mentioned that part because it kind of gives us some of the guiding principles that will frame some of our passage. You saw it in 9:11, where he says, again, I saw under the sun, the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor bread to the wise, nor rich to the intelligent, nor favor to those with knowledge, but time and chance happen to them all, for man does not know his time. What he's telling you there, some general principles is that life is unpredictable. Life is unpredictable, and you are limited. You can't control it, and you can't even know what's coming. The idea there is no prescribed rules that guarantee success, because things don't always work out the way you expect. The swift don't always win the race. The strong don't always win the fight. There's no level of control that will always assure victory. A top 10 team can be beaten by an unranked opponent. It can happen, right? You may have a high school buddy that lives to 100 and another one who dies at age 30. At the end of the day, you don't know. The smartest people don't always get the biggest paycheck, right? And so the reality is there's no guarantees in life. Time happens to you and you don't control it. And verse 12 says, and the hard times come and you can't dodge them all. I had a mentor tell me that when I was very young. He said, we are all one phone call away from being brought to our knees. Disturbing thing to say to a teenager, but it was true, right? That tragedy comes and you can't avoid it. But as we step into our text, even though life's unpredictable and chaotic and crazy, that doesn't mean there aren't better ways to live than others. And so he's going to present that case study, and I won't reread it, but he was talking about a little city with a few men that was attacked by a great king with great siege works. And so it says, here's a battle that you could guess the conclusion. I got a king with a big army, he's better resourced, and he's in a more advantageous position. In a battle, you always want to be the besieger, not the besieged. And yet, this little town wins for one reason only. It had a poor man who was wise. And so he says, in a volatile world, wisdom has value. Wisdom is actually more valuable than strength. Powerful man versus poor man won. Because the poor man had wisdom, right? Wisdom is greater than power and money. Blockbuster Video laughed at little Netflix in their attempt to mail you DVDs. And now Netflix is about to buy Warner Brothers, right? Wisdom and little can overpower big, no matter how many stores you have, right? And yet, he says, though wisdom has a value, he tempers it at the end with this really weird ending. Yet no one remembered the poor man. But I say that wisdom is better than might, though the poor man's wisdom is despised and his words are not heard. That's the most Ecclesiastes way to tell a story. There was a little town and it was attacked, but a poor man had wisdom and it saved the city. Hurrah! And then everyone forgot the poor man. What? No, wait, what? And part of that is him just telling you, because that's life, man. Sometimes the little guy doesn't get the credit, somebody else takes it. Kicker scores the game-winning field goal and then they rush out and interview the quarterback. And he walks home alone. Some of you are like, yeah, Ben, that happens every day at work. I give great advice and they take credit at the press conference. We just call it Tuesday around here, right? You go, this is how life is. And some of it is him telling you that. That's the way life is. But there's more to it than that. Why was this wise man ignored? Probably because he was poor, because he didn't look right. He didn't look famous. He didn't look powerful. He didn't look important. Notice as he moves on in verse 17, he says, the words of the wise heard in quiet are better than the shouting of a ruler among fools. He says the flashiness of foolishness can drown out the words of the wise. And so here's your first piece of advice. The first piece of advice in this text is to seek wisdom and avoid foolishness. But notice the whispers of the wise are objectively better than the shouting of even a ruler among fools. But the problem is wisdom is presented as poor and quiet. Foolishness is loud and powerful and has status, right? And that's the way the world works. It's mind-boggling to me that some of the most brilliant preachers of the Bible I know, very few people listen to. And there are people who are charlatans that fly around in G5s. I don't know why it's that way, but it is. And so foolishness is loud and for some reason funded, right? And yet wisdom is quiet sometimes, right? And yet the danger is not only is foolishness loud, it doesn't take much foolishness to really hurt. Notice in verse 18, wisdom is better than weapons of war, but one sinner destroys much good. Dead flies make the perfumer's ointment give off a stench. So a little folly outweighs wisdom and honor. That's such a great illustration. Do you know how hard it is to make perfume back then? I won't go into it, just trust me. It's hard. To mix up a vat of perfume was so hard, and one stupid fly just kind of lands in it and can wreck the whole thing. A little gross can ruin a big good thing. Imagine if you were at lunch and your waiter just said, hey, I just need you to know, just a drop of my blood got into your tea. It's like 100 parts tea to 1 part blood, so it should be fine. It's just a little bit, but you're good. You gonna drink it? Just a splash of urine in your salad. But if you look at the urine to salad ratio, you should be fine. You ruined it. You ruined it. A little gross ruins a lot of good. That's his point. And he says it's the same in life, same in your life. I built a business, I was successful, I helped all these people, I employed all these people, and you can wreck it all with one bad choice on one night when you are away on a work trip. You can ruin it all. A little foolishness. You can burn down so much good. And it's not just true in your life, it's true in your organization. You get some foolishness around you, it can do a lot of damage. One of my least favorite movies on the planet is Rocky V. Because Rocky gives him the power of attorney to his foolish, stupid brother-in-law. And he loses all his money. Rocky's 1 through 4 worth of money. One fool can make Rocky destitute. I hate TV shows like that. When you got a smart guy and his crazy cousin gets in trouble with the mob, and suddenly, some of y'all love shows like that. They stress me out. I hate when foolishness complicates normal people's lives. And yet he says, I just want you to know, wisdom's better than strength, but there's a lot of loud, strong fools running around. So that's your number one piece of advice. As you enter the world, there's a lot of loud foolishness. See your phone. And there's a lot of quiet wisdom. Seek wisdom and move past the foolishness. But in that, you have to realize, prioritize substance over status. The person with the biggest following, the person with the loudest voice, the person with the biggest office may not be the wisest person, right? You need to determine substance more than status because wisdom will often come poor and it will become small, right? And so in a crazy world, look for the wise person, right? Well, you go, well, foolishness can do that kind of damage and wisdom is better. How do I know the difference? Well, he tells you in verse 2, a wise man's heart inclines him to the right, a fool's heart to the left. Now, that isn't a political statement. He's just saying you'll know the difference because they go different directions. And in verse 3, even when the fool walks on the road, he lacks sense, and he says to everyone that he's a fool. He says, you don't have to work real hard to figure out foolishness. You give it time, and the fools will let you know who they are, right? You just make the choice to seek wisdom. You study the way you're doing it now. Understand how God made this world and how to best walk within it. And you'll save yourself a lot of pain, right? Seek wisdom, avoid foolishness, and when you can't avoid foolishness, stay calm. That's your second piece of advice. You see it in verse 4. If the anger of the ruler rises against you, do not leave your place, for calmness will lay great offenses to rest. One of the major themes in this book is life isn't fair, and fools often end up with power that can really make a mess of things, right? This might be the shouting fool ruler from a couple verses earlier. And so he says, hey, when you look at that, life's not fair, you can get impatient, you can get resentful, you can blow your stack, you can have a thin amount of patience. He says, don't do that. If you get into work and you find out that your boss is a fool, if they're yelling at you, you don't yell right back. Why? Because you will not get a good outcome. And if you hurry up and run out of the room, you'll just confirm his worst fears about you because he's probably yelling because he's insecure. And so calm is better than chaos. If you're in an argument at work, you stay calm. It feels so good to yell and scream, and righteous indignation is so hot right now, and it produces very little good. And so here he says, hey, you seek to be wise. Look for the wise and learn from them. And then when you're in a moment of tension with a fool, you stay calm. Calm is better than chaos. And you might even win over that person, right? But you gotta know it's coming. Even wherever you may work, foolishness abounds in this world. And that's the next story he tells in 5, 6, and 7. There's an evil that I've seen under the sun, as it were an error proceeding from the ruler. Folly is set in many high places, and the rich sit in a low place. I've seen slaves on horses and princes walking on the ground like slaves. I love this part because he was like, here's something really messed up. And he says it's an error made by someone who's in charge. What was it in verse 5? The wrong person gets the promotion. Some of you feel this very deeply. That is a great evil in the world. I've seen it, Ben. The incompetent got elevated. The idiot got the job. The guy who got lost on the road in verse 3 is now in charge of our division. Life isn't fair. And to add insult to injury, people who are competent are not in positions of influence, right? People who have no idea how to handle money are suddenly in charge of the money. People who know how to create and manage wealth have no power to do so. That's the position he's talking about here. Mistakes were made, right? It's a scary thing when you get authority and make an error because it can lead to chaos, right? And that's what he says here. The world gets turned upside down. Suddenly there's slaves on horses. There's people who don't know their way around suddenly riding on horses, and there's princes walking. We got morons in sports cars, and we got heroes driving Hondas. The world doesn't make sense, right? That's the idea he's saying here. That you put foolishness and authority, you can get some real chaos in an organization. That's a scary thing, right? One of the best shots in the movie Black Panther. Do you remember at the very beginning, all feels right in the world because T'Challa is king and he is righteous and he is just and he is merciful. That's a good king. The world flourishes. And then suddenly and very unexpectedly, an angry, resentful, loud man usurps the throne and becomes king. And do you remember when you see Killmonger stepping to the throne? The way Ryan Coogler shot the scene is the scene opens literally with the shot upside down. And then the shot slowly starts to spin as he walks towards the throne because he wants you to feel destabilized. When someone who is not righteous or merciful or wise is in leadership, it's a scary thing. It's a destabilizing thing. And for many of us, we see that and go, that's not fair. I don't like that my boss is the boss. I should be boss. We can feel that's not fair. And yet it's interesting the way he counsels us. Notice in verse 8, he who digs a pit will fall into it. A serpent will bite him who breaks through a wall. He who quarries stones is hurt by them, and he who splits logs is endangered by them. Does that comfort you when life's not fair? What is he talking about? What are we doing here? What he's saying here is you can shake your fist and rage when things aren't going the way you want them to in the office, but you need to know that's life. Everything's precarious and subject to change. There's a thin line between order and chaos every day. And so it's interesting in this section, what he says is, hey, look, in the midst of ordinary life, bad things can happen any single day. And he just picks very ordinary jobs. You can be digging a pit. And you go, who's out here digging pits? That's how you would catch large animals. You could be the pit guy and you fall into that pit. Life happens to you, right? You could be breaking through a wall. That's if you were, they used to stack stones to kind of separate different fields when they would grow crops. Stacking stones to separate fields, smart thing, but it also happens to create a great environment for snakes. Whoops. So you can just be out there trying to do your job and a snake gets you. You can be quarrying stones and be hurt by the very stones you're quarrying. You can be splitting logs and endangered by that same log, that same axe. Am I right, Brennan? Where are you? Yeah. It happens. Not making fun of you. I actually have a scar from a hatchet in my ankle as well. Very disappointing. And you go, I'm gonna go help the family succeed. Shunk. Donna, we're going to the emergency room, right? What's his point? If you're at work and you go, it's not fair. She got promoted, I didn't. He got that and I didn't. She has more followers and I don't. I'm smarter than him, but he has more power. I'm better than him and he's got more money. If you do all that, you go, what he's saying is, yeah, welcome to life. You don't get a vote. Life's crazy. You could be driving an Uber and get hit by a car. You could be sitting at your desk and ruin your back just by typing. Life's crazy. You go, that doesn't sound very comforting. You go, yeah, well, life's nuts, but wisdom's still good. And so that's his next piece of advice. So be prepared. Know life's crazy and make proper precautions. That's verses 10 and 11. If the iron's blunt and one does not sharpen the edge, he must use more strength, but wisdom helps one to succeed. If the serpent bites before it's charmed, there's no advantage to the charmer. He says, don't get bitter when life's unfair. Just get better. Wisdom's better. It can't guarantee that you'll be saved from all the difficulties in life, but it can make success easier. Be prepared. Stay sharp. Sharpen the blade. Before you get into the point where you're building your business, study building businesses. Before you want to lead an organization, study leaders and learn from the best. Sharpen the blade so you're more likely to succeed. And I love that serpent one. He was like, if you get bit by a snake and then call the snake charmer, you're a little late. Better to make preparations beforehand. So if you decide now, hey, I'm not gonna seek power, seek money, seek leadership, I'm gonna seek wisdom, then when you get power, money, and wisdom and leadership, you'll be ready. And you'll be more likely to succeed and you'll be less likely to get hurt because you know, before I move that rock, did we check that rock for snakes? You'll be wise as you enter into that leadership position. That's the kind of person you want to be. I talk to so many young people that want a stage, but haven't really sat with the Lord long enough to have something to say. I counsel so many young people that want leadership, but they have no idea where they would want to lead people to go. They just want power. They just want influence. For what? What do you think this world is about? Where do you think it's going? What do you think success is? Have you contemplated the God who made it and what his goals are for you? Before you grab for the power, the money, and the influence, fools can get those. You want to be wise when you handle it. So if you don't have it now, sharpen the blade. Just get it better as a person. It'll make you more skillful when the time comes for you to lead. And it'll save you from a lot of pain and the unpredictability of life. When did Noah build the boat? Before the rain. Before the rain. So get wise now, because you're going to get into life and it's surprising. But you don't want every problem to be the first time you've run into a problem. Right? So what wisdom should we employ? Look at verses 12 and following. The words of a wise man's mouth win him favor. The lips of the fool consume him. The beginning of the words of his mouth is foolishness, and the end of his talk is evil madness. A fool multiplies words, though no man knows what is to be, and who can tell him what will be after him? The toil of a fool wearies him, for he does not know the way to the sea. This is the same point said in a different way. He says, you know how to know fools? They talk a lot about things they know very little. The volume of words is in inverse proportion to the extent of their understanding. Fools start talking before they know anything. And fools start leading and they haven't even studied which way to go to the city. You don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be the person in charge and have nothing to say and nowhere to go. And so the wise person gives themselves time. Prepare for your meetings. Prepare for that interview. Show up and actually know what the organization's about and ask their leader good questions. If you're ever in an interview and they say, do you have any questions for me? Don't say, no. Think of some before you're in the moment. Preparation is valuable for success. The wise person sharpens the blade before it's time to go to work. The fool just starts talking and starts moving before they've considered their ways. It's interesting, I'm reading a biography of Mark Twain, who, as many of you know, was very successful as an author. You may not know, I didn't know, he married into wealth too. So he was doubly wealthy. He had great literary success, and he married a very wealthy woman with a large inheritance. And so he was like, I am crushing it at life. I cannot be stopped. I am amazing. And you know what? I'm smarter than all these publishers. And so he started his own publishing business. He's like, and I'm smarter than all these typesetters. And so he started investing in his own typing. I'll run the whole industry. I'll create the books, sell the books. I'll do it all. And he lost all of his money and all of her money and declared bankruptcy and longed for the days where he was just driving a riverboat in his 20s. And you go, whoops. Before you started a bunch of businesses, maybe you should have realized you're wise with words, but in business, you're dumber than rocks. So don't get in there and start moving rocks and then get shocked when the snake bites you. And I don't know how the story ends, I'll let you know. But right now it looks pretty bad. All right, we're actually doing good on time. I cut a lot out of this, but here we go. He's gonna apply these general principles to two areas as we approach the end. He's gonna talk about how these apply in the political realm and in the economic realm. They say around the holidays when you're with family, never mix politics, money, and religion. Let's try it all right now, shall we? This will be fun. So in the political realm, you see it in verses 16 through 20. Woe to you, O land, when your king is a child, and your prince feasts in the morning. Happy are you, O land, when your king is the son of nobility, and your princes feast at the proper time, for strength and not for drunkenness. Through sloth, the roof sinks in, and through indolence, the house leaks. Bread is made for laughter, and wine gladdens life, and money answers everything. Even in your thoughts, do not curse the king, nor in your bedroom curse the rich, for a bird of the air will carry your voice, or some winged creature tell the matter. He opens with a dirge for a land whose king is immature. He uses the word there for minor or a child, someone who has power before they have wisdom. That's a dangerous thing. And how do they reveal that they're a dangerous person? They feast at inappropriate times and for inappropriate reasons. They party in the morning, right? What does that mean? They prioritize the perks of power more than using that power for the benefits of their people. That's a bad leader. You don't want to be this person. You party early when work should be done. You use the system to enrich yourself rather than serving the people you've been empowered to serve. Woe to you, O land, when your king's a child, right? Paul warns against this for churches. It's very common in church world to see talent and to give it leadership before they've had a chance to form character. That's why you see so many tragedies every week in the news of some very talented pastor fall catastrophically because people saw talent and gave them authority before they had time to strengthen character. It's a dangerous thing. You don't want to be that. Woe to you. Don't be that king, right? So advice, get wisdom before you get power, right? Because here you see who's the noble person. This is your next piece of advice. Be self-controlled. So you want to get wisdom, and you want to be a self-controlled person. That's the happy king, the son of nobility. That doesn't mean they came from noble blood. He tells you what the nobility means. It means they eat at the proper time for the proper reason, not to get drunk, but for strength. That there are some perks to roles of leadership, but I use those perks for the purpose of that role, to help me advance the cause of the people I'm leading. That's a good leader, a self-controlled person who's not gluttonous, right? But discipline that ensures stability. That's why he tells that story about a roof sagging. He's not just talking about home repair, right? He's saying if you've given leadership over an organization, you want somebody who cares about the advancing of that organization. I learned this the hard way as a college student. I remember I was on a mission trip where midway through, all the adults left and they left the college kids in charge. And at that time, I was probably the most adept at public speaking up front, and so was looked to as a leader by some people, and so I kind of thought I'd become the leader. And then they picked Kevin. I was like, who's Kevin? And then they handed out all the other cabinet positions, and they didn't give me one, any of them. And so I thought, I'm the only person without a leadership job. And then they said, we created a new job called assistant to Kevin, Ben. I'm like, what? And I remember being so offended. And then I went to assist Kevin for one day. And I watched Kevin walk around and ask people how they're doing and wait to hear the answer, ask them what they need from him and look at how to serve him. I watched Kevin and I go, Kevin's using his power to help everybody win. I just wanted the spotlight. Thank God he's leader and not me. Woe to you when your king's a child. And so if you just want the perks of power, but not to serve the people, God help you. Grow in self-control. Right? This is the kind of person you want to be. And the interesting thing is he applies it and saying, so if you get frustrated that you're not in control, don't become a gossip. Isn't that interesting? And so it's funny because he uses this, that bread is for food and money answers everything. That's his critique. Immature leadership says, oh, we just have enough money, we'll keep spending it, and doesn't really think about how to lead an organization responsibly. So he's critiquing leadership in a subversive way. And then the next verse is, he says, but don't critique the leader out loud, because there's ears everywhere. So it's kind of a funny little irony. He's critiquing them and then saying, but you be careful doing this, because you don't want to be somebody that when you see someone leading foolishly, you just learn. Don't become a gossip. That won't help you. There's ears everywhere, right? Now you carry them in your pocket. And so you be careful. Don't become a gossip. Just become someone who works on your own self-control and becomes wise. Then he moves to the economic realm. Here's your next piece of advice. Is in Ecclesiastes 11. Cast your bread upon the waters, and you will find it after many days. Give a portion to 7 or even 8, for you know not what disaster may happen on the earth. I was always mystified by this verse as a child. Why would you throw your bread in the water and then go get it again? Who wants a wet sandwich? I just never understood it. Now, there's two schools of thought on what he's saying here. Some are saying, but they both kind of lead to the same guiding principle, which I'll tell you in a minute. Some commentators say this is talking about sound economic planning. So verse 1 is about investing abroad. Casting your bread upon waters is go ahead and ship your grain on a boat and sell it internationally. It'll take longer to get a profit, but if you invest over the long term, you can get a greater return. So it's talking about being a good investor, right? Keep putting money into that 401k, right? And then verse 2 is diversifying your investments. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, but diversify into different investments. You have no idea what company you may invest in that'll succeed and what company that will fail. You don't know, right? And so you would rather have patience and prudence than to chase get-rich schemes. That's the idea. Others say, no, this isn't about financial planning. This is about generosity. Because there's an old Egyptian proverb that says, do a good deed and throw it in the water, and when it dries, you will find it. You know, that's the way they talked about it back in the day, is don't be so controlled. Scatter some good in the world, and who knows what will come back. Be nice to everybody. Some of them may never help you. Someone may show up in a time of need and help you tremendously. I had a friend who had medical bills deep into the six figures. He drove home from the hospital depressed, and he saw a woman on the side of the road changing a flat tire. And he said, well, I have nothing to do. So he just pulled over, helped her change her tire. They started chatting. Turns out she worked and was the head of finance at the hospital. And by the time the tire was on, she had wiped out all of his debt. And he was like, hallelujah. It's not why he did it, but it's like, hey, just cast some bread out there, bro, and see what happens. That's the idea, right? Who knows? It could be that. Which is it talking about? It's a little hard to say. But both, I think what you can say is, what he's saying is, embrace risk. That's what he's saying. Embrace risk. You may unexpectedly get something back you gave up. You may unexpectedly see some things succeed and some things fail. You really don't know. Why is he saying this? Because he's been telling you how life is. He's been telling you life is chaotic, life is unpredictable, life is crazy, fools can become powerful, the rich can be walking like slaves. You have no idea the world's crazy, but that doesn't mean lock yourself in your room and be scared and never act. Understand the world's crazy and come play the game with us. Just jump out there. No, there's no rules that will ultimately let you control it all, but it's still fun. It's like learning English. You ever talk to someone who's learning English? They go, you learn all the rules, and then there's so many exceptions. You've seen the comedian talking about that. B-O-M-B spells bomb, and T-O-M-B spells tomb? No, it spells tomb. Oh, okay. So C-O-M-B, that spells comb? No, it spells comb. Why? And you can look at that and say, then there are no rules to English. All is chaos, all is meaningless. And you go, no, there are rules, and there are exceptions. And the exceptions can make you crazy, but if you give up, you're gonna have a hard time navigating in America, and I just ordered a steak sandwich. So it's a crazy world, but go ahead and join it because you might get something good done. That's kind of the idea. You don't know what's gonna happen. So invest, do good, play the game. Get out there in life. Get comfortable with calculated risk because you have no idea what's going to come, right? I was invited to a Cinco de Mayo party by a stranger. And I showed up, and when I got to her house was in the neighborhood where Donna and I had parked the car and prayed and believed that God was calling us to Washington, D.C. And we said, we felt called to this city in your very neighborhood. This is crazy. And she said, the house across the street has been empty for 20 years. I'm gonna call that lady. And that lady knocked hundreds of thousands of dollars off the price of that house till we could buy it. Go to a Cinco de Mayo party. You're probably not gonna get a house, but you never know. So do stuff is basically what he's saying. Get out there. Don't be so calculating you forget to be generous. And don't be so calculating that you try to control every variable, because you can't. You can't, and you'll make yourself crazy that way. Verse 3, if the clouds are full of rain, they empty themselves on the earth. And if a tree falls to the south or to the north, in the place where the tree falls, there it will lie. He who observes the wind will not sow. He who regards the clouds will not reap. As you do not know the way the spirit comes to the bones in the womb of a woman with the child, so you do not know the works of God who makes everything. In the morning sow your seed, and at evening withhold not your hand, for you do not know which will prosper, this or that, or whether both alike will be good. What's he saying? You don't know. There's some things you can predict. When the clouds are full, the rain will fall. And then he uses funny language. And when the pregnant lady's full, she'll have that baby, right? There's things you can count on. And he goes, but which way the wind blows, you have no idea. And how the wind, the ruach, the spirit enters that baby, you have no idea. He says that's life. It's a mix of predictable and unpredictable, rules and exceptions, expectations and unexpected. That's the game. It's the game of life, so go ahead and play it. Leaders hate this, by the way. I don't know if you've ever led something. You ever ask a leader, how much information do you want before you make a decision? The answer is always just a little bit more. I just wish I was certain this would work out. You don't get certainty in this life. You have to take a risk. Why? Because you are limited and you don't know the work of God who makes everything. William Cooper sang it this way: God moves in a mysterious way, his wonders to perform. He plants his footstep in the sea and rides upon the storm. Deep in the dark and hidden mines with never failing skill, He fashions all his bright designs and works his sovereign will. O fearful saints, fresh courage take. The clouds that you now dread are big with mercy and will break in blessings on your head. Judge not the Lord by feeble sense, but trust him for his grace. Behind a frowning providence, he hides a smiling face. Kohelet, who wrote Ecclesiastes, is a bit cynical, but here at the end, he's not a full-on cynic. He's just trying to help you know life's unpredictable, life's crazy, but as he comes towards the end of the book, he gets a little hopeful. In verse 7, light is sweet. It's pleasant for the eyes to see the sun. He'd been telling you, what's the point of even living? But now he goes, you know what? Once you accept life's nuts, there's some good days out there. Verse 8, so if a person lives many years, rejoice in them all. But let him remember that the days of darkness will be many. All that comes is vanity. Rejoice, O young man, in your youth. Let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth. Walk in the ways of your heart and the sight of your eyes. But know that for all these things, God will bring you to judgment. Remove vexation from your heart. Put away pain from your body, for youth and the dawn of life are vanity. That's your next piece of advice. Number 6 is enjoy while there's still time. So here at the end, he tells you, enjoy it. Know that dark times are coming. But don't let that vexation sink into your heart so you say, all is lost. That's what the philosophers did. I can't see the meaning, so it's meaningless. He says, no, it is vanity. It's ephemeral. It moves very quickly, and it's hard to discern what God's doing. But God gives us good days, so enjoy them. Kohelet's not a cynic. Get out there and enjoy your life. Ask that girl out. Go see the world, right? What are you waiting for? Put the phone down and show up for your own life, because it doesn't last long. It leaves so fast. I love the way Jim Elliot said it to Elizabeth as they were pining away for marriage one day, but life was so complicated. He said, let not our longings slay our lust for living. He said, don't let your longings for what you might have and don't have keep you from enjoying the day that you do have, right? I wake up every morning and just let my devotion be a presentation of what's in my heart. Very rarely first thing in the morning is it positive. I can't think of a single day I wake up and go, a chance to praise my Savior? Yes. I usually start with, here's the problems, here are their names, here's the stuff I gotta do, rise and grind. But I'll tell you one thing I've tried to do is I draw a line, and on the other side, I write all the things I'm grateful for. And I'll tell you, it really does change things. To go, life's short, I don't wanna miss it. In 4 years, my oldest won't live in my house anymore. I don't wanna miss it. I don't wanna miss it. Don't lose your lust for living now. Don't let longing for what you have or don't have slay the lust for living, right? But then he says, hey, enjoy your life. Have fun, follow your heart, but know God will judge you. Some people misinterpret that. He's like, go have fun and then God will kill you later. It's like, no, that betrays a misunderstanding of joy in God. That's serpent logic, not God logic. What's the first commandment in Genesis? Eat, eat. Enjoy the world I gave you. I put you in a garden called delight, and I told you to enjoy it. And then I gave you a woman to love and to enjoy this world with. God and joy are not at odds. And so he's telling you, live your life, but don't believe the stupid lie that that means to be a hedonist without any righteousness, because that's not real joy. I show up here early before any of y'all every Sunday morning. It's part of my job. I show up here very early, and I get to watch the tragic end of some bad ideas every Sunday morning as I watch people stumble out of the clubs. Don't think that a hedonistic, godless lifestyle is true joy. That's not what he's advocating here. God gives you joy without adding sorrow to it. And so he says, pursue a godly joy and enjoy your life in a good way. Don't be too busy to make friends. I know friendship isn't real popular sometimes in D.C. Which president was it that said, if you want a friend in D.C., get a dog? And yet you can make some friendships here. You really can. Enjoy your life while you live it. God made us that way. And the last thing is to trust God. Trust God. Seek wisdom. Avoid foolishness. Stay calm when life's unjust. Keep learning. Be prepared. Have some self-control. Embrace risk. Enjoy your life. And then trust God, because life feels crazy, but it's not random. He says, you do not know the work of God who makes everything. Isn't that interesting at the end? Kohelet says, life's crazy, it's unpredictable, you can't know it, but don't mistake that for meaning there's no purpose. God works everything. It may seem random to you, but it's not to him. So as we close, you go, well, Ben, how does this relate to, isn't this Advent season? When's the manger gonna show up? Well, Mary is great with child, and there's a census that tells Joseph you gotta leave your home. Massive inconvenience to load up a pregnant lady on a donkey. And yet they gotta do it. They get down there and it's chaos because suddenly the whole kingdom's in upheaval. People are having to move to places they don't live. They show up and by the time the pregnant lady gets there, there's no room in the inn. They gotta sleep in a barn. Unjust, right? Herod is an insecure and violent leader. So when he finds out that people believe the Messiah might have been born in Bethlehem, he goes and starts slaughtering every baby there under 2. And so now not only do they not get to go home, they have to flee all the way down to Egypt. Finally, when Herod dies, they think it's safe enough to come back, and they come back and find out that Herod's fool son is now in charge. So they got to bypass and go straight up to Nazareth. You can look at Joseph and Mary's life in the Advent season and see chaos, injustice, foolish leaders, and you could see the potential to gain bitterness and resentment. But they don't. Why? Because it was prophesied centuries before the Messiah must be born in Bethlehem. So a fool makes a census, but God ordains where his people are. Herod's crazy and violent. They have to flee down to Egypt. But Matthew tells us that was to fulfill scripture. Out of Egypt I called my son. That Jesus was recapitulating all the sufferings of his people. You had to go down to Egypt and then be rescued and brought forth. I went down to Egypt and rescued and brought forth. So I can be a sympathetic high priest that when you say I'm going through struggle, he says, I've been there. They show up and he has to go north to Nazareth to live, to fulfill scripture. He shall be called a Nazarene. It looked chaotic from one vantage point, but God works everything so that what was prophesied centuries before comes true. So that though it looked random in the moment, when you pull the lens back, all these seemingly chaotic decisions from chaotic leaders were creating a big arrow pointing straight down into a major. That is my son. Behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. So friend, I don't know what struggles you're dealing with. I don't know how unfair, unjust your work situation seems. Wisdom's better than folly. Wisdom's better than strength, but they may still forget your name. But it's still worth living. Life's good, and there's a God leading it all. And though we don't know all things, he sent his son so we can know the one who knows all things. That's the hope of Christmas, that into our darkness a light has dawned. God has come to lead us home. And so we get to enjoy life the way we were meant to in the garden, because he has come to bring light as far as the darkness is found.